Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper, where forgotten civilizations, unexplained wonders, and ancient secrets come back to life. Ready to unravel the mystery? Let's begin the journey. In the cliffs of Mali, West Africa, lives a tribe whose sacred knowledge has baffled scientists for decades. The Dogon people possess detailed information about a star system that is completely invisible to the naked eye. They knew of planets, orbital periods, and a hidden star before modern astronomers. Did this ancient tribe receive this knowledge from extraterrestrial visitors? Or is there another explanation? To begin our journey into one of the most profound and baffling mysteries in all of anthropology, we must travel to the heart of West Africa, to the nation of Mali. Here, carved into the dramatic cliffs of the Bandiagra escarpment, live the Dogon people. For centuries, they have existed in relative isolation, a proud and resilient culture that has preserved its unique traditions and sacred knowledge against the encroaching tides of the modern world. On the surface, their villages of mud brick homes, their vibrant masked dances, and their complex social structures seem to be a fascinating, but not entirely unique example of a traditional African society. But hidden within their most secret, sacred ceremonies and their most ancient creation myths lies a body of knowledge that simply should not exist. It is a corpus of astronomical information so precise, so advanced, and so seemingly impossible for a pre-technological society to possess that its existence has fueled decades of intense debate and wild speculation. The Dogon possess a secret about the stars, a secret that challenges our very understanding of the past. To uncover this secret, we must turn our gaze to the night sky, to the brightest star visible from Earth, a star that has captivated humanity since the dawn of civilization. Sirius. For the ancient Egyptians, Sirius was the sacred star of the goddess Isis, its heliacal rising heralding the annual, life-giving flood of the Nile. For the ancient Greeks, it was the dog star, its appearance in the summer sky marking the sweltering dog days of August. For cultures all over the world, Sirius is a celestial landmark, a brilliant, beautiful beacon in the darkness. For the Dogon, Sirius, which they call Sigi Tolo or the Star of the Sigue, is the absolute center of their cosmic map. But their understanding of this star goes far beyond what any other ancient culture ever knew. Their elders, the keepers of the deep knowledge, will tell you that what we see as a single brilliant point of light is not one star, but two. And this is where the mystery begins. The core of the Dogon's astonishing knowledge revolves around their belief in a second, invisible companion star to Sirius. They call this star Patolo. The name itself is incredibly revealing. Tolo simply means star. The word Pa comes from the name of the tiniest seed known to the Dogon, a type of grain called fonio. So Patolo literally means the fonio seed star, or more simply, the smallest star. According to the sacred traditions passed down through generations of Dogon priests, or Hogans, this tiny companion star is the most important object in the entire sky. It is, they say, the true center of the Sirius system and the origin point of all creation. Now let's pause and consider what a monumental claim this is. The Dogon live in a pre-industrial society. They have no telescopes, no spectrographs, no advanced astronomical equipment of any kind. Their knowledge of the sky is based on what they can see with the naked eye. And with the naked eye, Sirius appears as a single solitary star. There is absolutely no hint of a companion. For centuries, modern astronomers believed the same thing. Sirius was just a bright, nearby star, interesting but uncomplicated. It wasn't until the 19th century that strange wobbles in Sirius's movement through space led astronomers to theorize that it must have a massive, unseen companion whose gravitational pull was affecting it. It was a mathematical necessity, a ghost in the machine. Then in 1862, an American astronomer and telescope maker named Alvin Graham Clark, while testing a powerful new lens, finally saw it. He spotted a faint, tiny pinpoint of light right next to the overwhelming glare of Sirius A. He had discovered Sirius B. The discovery of Sirius B was a triumph of modern astronomy, the result of advanced mathematics and powerful new optical technology. But the Dogon, a tribe living in isolation in the cliffs of Mali, apparently knew about it all along. They knew that Sirius was a binary star system. How is this possible? How could a people without telescopes have knowledge of a star that is completely, utterly invisible to the naked eye? Sirius B is what is known as a white dwarf star. It is the collapsed, burnt-out core of a once larger star. It is incredibly small, only about the size of the Earth, but it is also incredibly massive, packing almost the entire mass of our Sun into that tiny volume. This combination of small size and its proximity to the blinding glare of its parent star, Sirius A, makes it one of the most difficult objects in the sky to observe, even with a good amateur telescope. For a pre-technological society to know of its existence is, by all conventional understanding of history, impossible. Yet the Dogon knew. The existence of Ptolo is not a fringe belief among them. It is a central non-negotiable fact of their entire cosmology, represented in their art, their architecture, and their most sacred rituals. This is the first and most profound pillar of the Dogon mystery. But the mystery does not stop there. It deepens. If knowing about the existence of an invisible star is impossible, then knowing its precise orbital characteristics without technology is doubly so. And yet, this is exactly what the Dogon claim. According to the French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germaine Dieterlen, who spent decades living with and studying the Dogon from the 1930s onwards, the Dogon knew the specific orbital period of their Ptolo. They told the anthropologists that the smallest star takes approximately 50 Earth years to complete one orbit around its larger companion, CG Tolo. They described this orbit not as a perfect circle, but as an ellipse, with Sirius A at one of the foci of the ellipsia concept that perfectly aligns with Kepler's laws of planetary motion, which were not formulated until the 17th century. The Dogon don't just know this 50-year period as an abstract fact. They live by it. Their entire ritual life is governed by this celestial cycle. Their most important and sacred ceremony of all is called the Sigüe festival. The Sigüe is a massive, elaborate ritual that is held only once every 50 years. Its purpose is to celebrate the renewal of the world, and to commemorate the original revelation of knowledge given to humanity by their creator God, Amma. The festival is a multi-year affair that slowly travels from village to village throughout the Dogon territory. The central icon of the festival is a great, carved wooden mask known as the Great Mask, or the Mother of Masks. This mask is so large and sacred that it is not meant to be worn, but is kept in a hidden sanctuary. A new one is crafted for each Sigüe cycle, and the old ones are left in their resting places, creating a physical, datable record of the festival's history stretching back for centuries. The entire rhythm of their spiritual culture, the pulse of their relationship with the cosmos, beats to the drum of a 50-year cycle. Now let's turn back to modern astronomy. What is the actual, scientifically measured orbital period of Sirius B around Sirius A? The official figure, calculated using decades of precise measurements, is 50.04 years. The agreement is breathtaking. The Dogon, with no apparent means of measuring such a long span of time with such accuracy, have based their most sacred and ancient ceremony on an astronomical cycle that modern science only confirmed in the 20th century. How could they possibly have known this? It's not a number one can guess. It's not a cycle that is obvious from observing other celestial phenomena. The lunar cycle is roughly 29 days. The solar cycle is 365 days. The cycles of the visible planets like Jupiter and Saturn are around 12 and 29 years, respectively. A 50-year cycle is unique. It corresponds to nothing else in the sky except the orbit of the invisible star Sirius B. The Dogon even represent this orbit in their sacred art and diagrams, which they draw in the sand during initiation ceremonies. Their drawings show a small circle or ellipse, moving around a larger one, a perfect schematic of a binary star system. They are able to accurately predict the future positions of the star within its orbit. They told Grial that the star rotates on its own axis, a fact which is true for all stars but is certainly not observable. The precision of their knowledge is simply staggering. They possessed a complex set of astronomical data that modern science only acquired after centuries of painstaking work, using principles of physics and technology that were unimaginable just a few hundred years ago. This uncanny accuracy of the 50-year cycle is the second great pillar of the mystery. It moves beyond the simple, impossible fact of knowing the star exists, and into the realm of possessing detailed, quantitative data about its behavior. As if knowing about an invisible star and its 50-year orbit wasn't enough, the Dogon's impossible knowledge delves into even more specific and esoteric details about the nature of their star system, details that seem to come straight out of a modern astrophysics textbook. Their descriptions of the companion star, Ptolemy, are particularly stunning. They told Marcel Grial that even though the star is the smallest thing, it is also the heaviest star. They have a saying that all the people of Earth together could not lift it. This is a perfect, if poetic, description of a white dwarf star. White dwarf stars are a form of what astronomers call degenerate matter. They are the incredibly dense, collapsed remnants of stars that have exhausted their nuclear fuel. The gravitational forces are so immense that the normal structure of atoms has been crushed, with electrons stripped from their nuclei and packed together, as tightly as quantum mechanics will allow. A single teaspoon of matter from a white dwarf like Sirius B would weigh several tons on Earth. The Dogon, with no concept of physics, gravity, or atomic structure, somehow knew that this tiny, invisible star was unimaginably heavy and dense. How could they possibly describe this property? A property that is completely counterintuitive and can only be understood through advanced physics. But their knowledge didn't stop with the properties of Sirius B. The Dogon cosmology speaks of an entire system. They also claim there is a third star in the Sirius system. They call this star Enigma, which translates to the sorghum female star. They describe this third star as being larger and lighter than Ptolemy, and they say that it also has a planet orbiting it. Enigma, they claim, is the true home of the spiritual forces that guide humanity. To this day, modern astronomy has a complicated relationship with this claim. While the existence of a third star, a Sirius C, has been periodically proposed by some astronomers to explain some minor orbital anomalies, its existence has never been confirmed. It remains a tantalizing possibility, a point where the Dogon's knowledge might still be ahead of our own. But for now, it stands as an unverified detail in their otherwise stunningly accurate system. Beyond the Sirius system itself, the Dogon's knowledge extends to our own solar system. They describe the planet Jupiter, which they call Dana Tolo, as having 4 main companions. Jupiter does indeed have 4 large moons: Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, which were first discovered by Galileo in 1610 when he pointed his newly invented telescope at the planet. These Galilean moons are completely invisible to the naked eye. The Dogon also described the planet Saturn, Yalu Yulo Tolo, as the star with the permanent ring around it. Again, the rings of Saturn are a magnificent sight, but only through a telescope. To the naked eye, Saturn is simply a bright star-like point of light. The Dogon even seem to have a concept of a heliocentric or sun-centered solar system, drawing diagrams that show the planets orbiting the sun, another piece of knowledge that took a revolution in European thought, led by Copernicus, to establish. Let's step back and take stock of what we have here. We have an isolated, pre-industrial African tribe that possessed a detailed, complex, and multi-layered body of astronomical knowledge. This knowledge included the fact that Sirius is a binary star system, the existence of an invisible companion star, Sirius B, the fact that this companion is incredibly small, dense, and heavy, the fact that it has a 50-year elliptical orbit, the existence of a possible third star in the system, the fact that Jupiter has 4 major moons, and the fact that Saturn has rings. Every single one of these facts is impossible to know without the aid of a telescope and an advanced understanding of celestial mechanics. This is the mystery in its starkest form. It is not a vague legend or a symbolic myth that can be interpreted in many ways. It is a collection of specific, falsifiable scientific claims. And a remarkable number of these claims, which were documented by anthropologists in the 1930s and 40s, have been verified as correct by modern science. We are left with a profound and deeply unsettling question that strikes at the very heart of our understanding of history and human capability. Where did the Dogon get this information? It is a question that cannot be answered by conventional history or archaeology. It seems to defy all rational explanation. The Dogon themselves, however, have a very clear and unwavering answer to this question. They say they did not discover this knowledge through their own observations. They did not deduce it from generations of skywatching. Their answer is far more direct and far more incredible. They say it was given to them. And the story of how they received this gift is the story of an ancient, close encounter with visitors who were not from this world. The astronomical knowledge possessed by the Dogon people presents us with a profound and unsettling paradox. The existence of this information, the details of an invisible star, its 50-year orbit, its immense density defies all conventional historical and scientific explanation. It is a body of data that seems utterly impossible for a pre-technological society to have acquired on its own. When faced with such a stark impossibility, we are forced to ask the most fundamental question. If they did not discover this knowledge themselves, where did it come from? For the Dogon, this is not a mystery. They are not baffled by their own wisdom. They have a clear, consistent, and unwavering answer. An answer that has been preserved for countless generations in their most sacred oral traditions. Their explanation does not involve brilliant ancient astronomers or a lost high-tech civilization. Their story is far more direct and far more extraordinary. They claim their knowledge was a gift, delivered to their ancestors in the distant past by intelligent beings who came to Earth from the very star system in question. This is not a story of human ingenuity. It is a story of first contact. To understand their explanation, we must delve into the heart of their creation myth. A complex and beautiful epic that describes the origins of the universe, the Earth, and humanity itself. The story begins, as all things do for the Dogon, with the creator god Amma. In the beginning, Amma created the sun and the moon from pots of clay, and then flung handfuls of clay pellets into space to form the stars. He then created the Earth, a female entity, but was unsatisfied with his creation. It was his next act that set the cosmic drama in motion. He created the Ptolo, the Phoneoseed star, the tiny, dense companion to Sirius that we know as Sirius B. For the Dogon, this star is the egg of the world, the cosmic womb from which all life and matter originated. Amma placed all the seeds of creation within this tiny, superdense star. This is the starting point. The legend then tells of a rebellion. One of Amma's earliest creations, a being named Ogo, rebelled against the divine order. He broke out of his own cosmic egg prematurely, desperate to create a world of his own. In doing so, he tore a piece from his placenta, which became the Earth, but in its imperfect state, it was dry and barren. Ogo's rebellious and chaotic actions introduced disorder into the universe. To counteract this chaos and bring order and life to the Earth, Amma decided to sacrifice another of his creations, a set of divine beings who would become the saviors of the world. These beings were called the Namo, and it is with the arrival of the Namo that the Dogon story of their celestial knowledge truly begins. The Dogon elders describe the arrival of the Namo as a world-altering event, a moment of profound shock and awe that seared itself into the memory of their people forever. The story goes that thousands of years ago, the ancestors of the Dogon witnessed a new star appear in the sky. Then, from this star, a vessel descended to the Earth. The Dogon call this vessel the Ark of the Namo. Its descent was not a quiet or gentle affair. It is described as being accompanied by a great noise, like the roaring of a storm, and a furious wind that kicked up clouds of dust and sand. The ark is said to have spun as it descended, a whirling vortex of sound and fury. It finally came to rest not with a crash, but with a smooth landing on the dry, parched earth that Ogo had created, bringing with it the promise of water and life. The ark itself is described in very specific terms. It was red like fire on the inside and white like metal on the outside, and it landed on a part of the ground that became moist and fertile. This description of a descending, spinning vessel, accompanied by great noise and wind, has, for modern proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, all the hallmarks of a spacecraft landing. The roaring and whirling sound is evocative of engine noise, and the description of the landing site becoming fertile could be a memory of the craft's propulsion system kicking up dust and perhaps altering the soil. The Dogon even represent the shape of this ark in their sacred art and the architecture of their granaries. The drawings often show a conical or basket-like shape, sometimes with legs, which is meant to represent the ark standing on the ground after its landing. For the Dogon, this was not a metaphor. It was a real event, the foundational moment of their history, when the barrier between the heavens and the earth was breached by visitors from another world. From this vessel emerged the beings who would change the destiny of the Dogon people forever. The Namo. The description of these beings is one of the strangest and most fascinating aspects of the entire legend. The Namo were not human. They are described as amphibious creatures, beings who were at home both in the water and on the land. Their skin was said to be primarily green, though sometimes with other colors, and it was smooth and hairless like that of a fish or a frog. They are often referred to as the water spirits, or the masters of the water. The legends say that their bodies were flexible, with no joints in their arms or legs. Their heads were large and their eyes were red. They had long arms and webbed hands and feet. Most importantly, they could not survive for long out of the water. Their ark, the Dogon say, was filled with water, and upon landing, they immediately created a reservoir or pool, as water was essential for their existence. The Namo are consistently described as benevolent beings. They were not conquerors or invaders, they were teachers. They were considered divine, semi-divine, or ancestors from the stars, sent by the creator god Amma to bring order, knowledge, and life to the desolate earth. They were the great civilizing heroes of the Dogon people. Their amphibious nature is central to their identity. Water for the Dogon is the symbol of life, light, and the creative word. The Namo, as masters of the water, were the masters of life itself. The Dogon believe that the Namo can live on land, but they are most at home in the water, and they consider them to be the guardians of the world's spiritual purity. They are sometimes described as being twins, representing the fundamental duality of existence, and it is said that their bodies contain the essence of both male and female. These strange, fish-like amphibious beings, emerging from a spinning craft that descended from the sky, were the source of all the Dogon's sacred knowledge. Once the Namo had established their watery home on Earth, their primary mission began: to educate the primitive human beings they found there. The Dogon oral traditions describe a long period of instruction, during which the Namo acted as divine teachers, patiently imparting the essential skills and knowledge needed for civilization to flourish. They taught the ancestors of the Dogon the art of agriculture, showing them how to cultivate the essential grains like fonio and sorghum that would sustain them in the harsh environment of the Sahel. They taught them the crafts of weaving and pottery, giving them the tools to create clothing and vessels. They taught them the social and religious structures that would form the basis of Dogon society, establishing the roles of the priests, the elders, and the community. They were, in essence, the architects of the Dogon way of life. But the most important and most secret knowledge they imparted was not of the earth, but of the heavens. The Namo, the Dogon claim, told them the story of their own origins. They pointed to the sky, to the great star Sirius, and they revealed its greatest secret. They told the early Dogon that the brilliant star they saw was not alone. They described their home, the invisible companion star, Ptolo. They explained that it was a tiny star, but also the heaviest star in the sky. They described its 50-year elliptical orbit around Sirius, and they explained that this cycle was the basis of all creation and the rhythm of the universe. They even told them of the third star, Enigma, and its orbiting planet. They were, in effect, giving the Dogon a detailed astronomical lecture, a complete cosmology centered on the Sirius system. This act of sharing knowledge was not just a casual exchange of information. It was a sacred transmission, a gift of divine revelation. The Nama were entrusting the Dogon with the most important secrets of the universe, making them the earthly guardians of this celestial truth. This is the Dogon's explanation for their impossible knowledge. It wasn't the result of observation or calculation. It was the result of a direct pedagogical encounter with beings who had come from that very star system. They know about Sirius B because the inhabitants of the Sirius system told them about it. The astronomical data was not discovered. It was dictated. The Dogon's entire culture is designed to be a vessel for this sacred, off-world knowledge. Their complex rituals, their intricate art, and their sacred ceremonies are all, at their core, mnemonic devices, complex systems designed to ensure that this celestial information is preserved and passed down, unchanged, through the generations. The Sigue Festival, held every 50 years to commemorate the orbit of Sirius B, is the ultimate expression of this. It is a massive living textbook, a ritual reenactment of the Namo's arrival, and the transmission of their secret knowledge. The great, unwearable mother of masks is said to represent the body of the Namo, and the entire festival is a way of keeping the connection to these ancient teachers alive. The Dogon's sand drawings are another example. During initiation rites for young men, the elders will draw complex diagrams in the sand. These diagrams, which appear to be simple abstract patterns to an outsider, are in fact detailed astronomical charts. They show the orbit of Ptolo around Cg. They show the relative positions of the stars in the system. They show the Earth's own solar system. These drawings are a visual language, a way of teaching complex cosmological concepts without a written script. Every aspect of their culture, from the layout of their villages, which is said to mirror the structure of the cosmos, to the shapes of their baskets, is imbued with this astronomical symbolism. They are a people living inside their star chart. They do not just know the story, they are the story. After their work on Earth was done, after they had imparted their wisdom and set humanity on the right path, the Namo's time on our planet came to an end. The legends say they returned to their ark and ascended back into the heavens, returning to their watery home in the Sirius system. But they did not leave humanity alone. The Dogon believe that the Namo are still the guardians of Earth. They are the spiritual protectors of humanity, watching over us from their distant home. They also believe that the Namo will one day return. This belief in a future return is a common thread in many first contact myths around the world. From the Aztec belief in the return of Quetzalcoatl to the Hopi belief in the return of the Kachinas. It frames the original encounter not as a one-time event, but as the first chapter in a long, ongoing relationship between humanity and beings from the stars. This, then, is the complete narrative as told by the Dogon. It is an internally consistent, profound, and deeply held belief system that neatly and completely explains the existence of their impossible astronomical knowledge. It is a story of divine, amphibious beings descending from the sky in a noisy, spinning arc, teaching humanity the secrets of civilization and the cosmos, and then returning to their home in the Sirius star system. It is, without a doubt, one of the most compelling and specific ancient astronaut legends ever recorded. For proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, the Dogon myth is the smoking gun. They see it as a literal historical account, a case study in extraterrestrial contact. They argue that the Dogon's descriptions are too specific, and their astronomical knowledge too precise, to be a mere coincidence or a symbolic myth. The spinning arc was a spacecraft. The Namo were alien visitors, their amphibious nature perhaps a necessity for long-duration space travel, or a reflection of the environment of their home world. The Gift of Knowledge was an educational program conducted by an advanced race to help a primitive species. The story, in their view, fits the pattern of alien intervention perfectly. They argue that we should take the Dogon at their word. They are not inventing a myth. They are preserving a memory. This story forces us to confront a profound choice in how we view the past. Do we accept the story as the Dogon tell it, a literal account of an encounter with non-human intelligence? To do so would require us to abandon our conventional understanding of history and accept that our planet has been visited by extraterrestrials. Or do we reject their explanation as myth and folklore, leaving us with the original unsolved problem of how they acquired their impossible knowledge? If we dismiss the story of the Namo, we are left with the gaping hole, a paradox with no apparent solution. The beauty and the power of the Dogon mystery lie in this very dilemma. They present us with a story that seems on the surface to be pure fantasy, yet it is a fantasy that perfectly explains a set of hard, scientific facts that otherwise have no explanation. It is a legend that looks us directly in the eye and asks us to believe in the impossible. And before we can attempt to debunk this incredible tale, it is essential to understand it in its full, majestic, and deeply strange context, as told by the people who have guarded it for millennia. The story the Dogon tell is one of the most powerful and specific accounts of ancient alien contact ever recorded. The tale of the amphibious Namo, descending from the sky in a spinning arc to deliver the secrets of the Sirius star system, is a narrative so complete and so compelling that it seems to perfectly explain the impossible. It accounts for their knowledge of an invisible star, its 50-year orbit, and its incredible density. For those who believe in the ancient astronaut theory, the Dogon case is Exhibit A. It is a pristine example of a pre-technological culture, preserving the memory of a real encounter with extraterrestrial intelligence. The case, it would seem, is closed. But in the world of critical inquiry, a story that is too perfect, an explanation that neatly solves every problem, often warrants the most intense scrutiny. When a mystery seems to be tied up with a perfect bow, it is the job of the investigator to pull on the ribbon and see if the whole thing unravels. And when we begin to apply the tools of skeptical analysis to the Dogon mystery, the beautiful, airtight narrative of alien contact begins to show cracks. These are not small, insignificant fissures. They are deep structural fractures that threaten the entire edifice. We must now shift our perspective from that of a believer to that of a detective, and explore the powerful counter-arguments, the alternative explanations, and the terrestrial sources that could potentially debunk the myth of the Dogon's alien teachers. The entire modern understanding of the Dogon's secret knowledge rests almost exclusively on the work of two people, the French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germain Dieterlen. It was their decades of research, conducted from the 1930s to the 1950s, and their subsequent publications, most famously the 1950 essay A Sudanese Sirius System, that introduced the world to the Dogon's incredible cosmology. Griaule was a respected scholar, and he claimed to have earned the trust of the Dogon elders over many years, eventually being initiated into their deepest and most secret levels of knowledge. He presented his findings as a direct, unfiltered transmission of ancient, sacred lore. But this is precisely where the first and most powerful skeptical argument begins: the problem of cultural contamination. The theory of contamination suggests that the Dogon's ancient astronomical knowledge is not ancient at all. Instead, it was acquired in the 20th century through contact with Westerners. The timing is crucial. Griaule and his team were living with and studying the Dogon during a period of intense European colonial influence in Africa. The Dogon, while isolated, were not completely cut off from the outside world. Missionaries, French colonial administrators, soldiers, and explorers had been passing through the region for decades before Griaule's arrival. Is it not possible that one of these Western visitors, perhaps sitting around a fire one night, discussed modern astronomy with a curious Dogon elder? Consider the scenario. A European missionary trying to find common ground to explain the Christian concept of a trinity might have used the idea of a three-star system as a metaphor. An explorer with an interest in astronomy might have mentioned that the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, was known to have a tiny, invisible companion. News and scientific ideas travel in strange and unpredictable ways. The discovery of Sirius B was a hot topic in astronomical circles in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It's plausible that this information in a simplified form could have reached the Dogon long before Grial's formal study. The Dogon are known to be incredibly intelligent and syncretic people. Syncretism is the process by which a culture melds new ideas with its existing belief systems. It is a way of making sense of new information by incorporating it into the familiar framework of one's own worldview. The contamination theory proposes that this is exactly what happened. The Dogon elders, hearing these fascinating new tidbits of astronomical information from Westerners, did not simply accept them as foreign science. They recognized them as powerful and important ideas and masterfully wove them into the fabric of their own mythology. The invisible star became the Phonioseed star, the cosmic egg of their creator god Amma. The 50-year orbit became the sacred cycle for their ancient Sigüe festival. They didn't just borrow the facts, they adopted them and gave them a deep Dogon meaning. This would make them not passive recipients of alien knowledge, but brilliant intellectual bricoleurs, masters of myth-making, who took modern data and integrated it so seamlessly into their own traditions that it appeared to have been there all along. This would explain why their knowledge seems so surprisingly modern. Because it is modern. This theory is particularly compelling because it doesn't require us to believe in a grand conspiracy or a deliberate hoax. It suggests a natural and well-documented cultural process. The biggest proponent of this contamination theory was a scientist and writer named Carl Sagan. In his book Broca's Brain, Sagan pointed out that the information about Sirius became a topic of public discussion in the Western world in the 1920s, precisely during the period of Grial's fieldwork. He suggested that it was far more likely that the Dogon learned these facts from a visiting European than from a visiting extraterrestrial. He saw the Dogon mystery not as evidence of alien contact, but as a textbook case of cultural diffusion and syncretism. This theory provides a rational, terrestrial explanation for the Dogon's knowledge, one that doesn't require us to believe in amphibious aliens, but instead highlights the intellectual creativity of the Dogon people themselves. The knowledge in this view came not from the stars but from France. The second major challenge to the ancient astronaut interpretation comes from within the field of anthropology itself. If the Dogon truly possessed this detailed, ancient knowledge of the Sirius system, then one would expect other researchers who visit them to find the same information. The findings should be repeatable. Yet this is not what has happened. In the decades since Grial and Dieterlen published their groundbreaking work, numerous other anthropologists have traveled to Mali to live with and study the Dogon. And curiously, they have struggled to independently verify Grial's most spectacular claims. A Belgian anthropologist named Walter van Beek spent years living with the Dogon in the 1970s and 80s. He specifically tried to find evidence of the Sirius-related astronomical knowledge among the elders. His conclusion was startling. He found that while the Dogon certainly held Sirius as an important star, the vast majority of them had never heard of Sirius B, the 50-year orbit, or the specific details that Grial had reported. The secret knowledge seemed to be a secret even from the Dogon themselves. Van Beek found that only a few elders who had worked directly with Marcel Grial decades earlier seemed to know the stories, leading him to believe that Grial himself was the source of the information. This leads to the problem of misinterpretation. Marcel Grial was not just a passive observer. He was a man on a mission. He believed that African cultures possessed a deep, complex, and highly structured system of thought that was equal to any Western philosophy. He was determined to prove this to a skeptical European academic world. He conducted his interviews through a long and arduous process, often using a single primary informant and a team of translators. Is it possible that in his eagerness to find a complex, hidden cosmology, he projected his own ideas onto the Dogon myths? Could he have misinterpreted symbolic language as literal scientific fact? Let's look at the name Ptolo. Grial interpreted this as the Phonio seed star, with Pa being the tiny seed and Tolo meaning star. This is a very literal translation. However, other linguists and anthropologists have pointed out that the word Tolo, in the Dogon language, doesn't just mean star. It can also refer to any bright point of light or even a concept. And the word Pa can have multiple meanings. What if Ptolo wasn't a reference to a specific tiny star, but was a symbolic name for a different celestial object, or even an abstract concept? For example, some researchers have noted that the Dogon myths describe Ptolo as being the first star to rise. The planet Venus is often the first star to appear in the evening sky. Could the complex myths be a symbolic description of the movements of Venus? Similarly, the claim that the Dogon described Sirius B as the heaviest star could be a mistranslation of a metaphor. In many cultures, heavy can mean important or foundational. The Dogon may have been trying to communicate that Ptolo was the most spiritually significant element in their cosmology, the heavy anchor of their beliefs. Grial, with his Western scientific mindset, may have heard the word heavy and immediately interpreted it in the physical sense of mass and density. This is not to accuse Grial of dishonesty, but to suggest the very real possibility of a profound cultural misunderstanding. He may have been engaged in a long, complex dialogue with the Dogon elders where both sides were, to some extent, hearing what they wanted to hear. The Dogon were giving him their deep, symbolic myths, and he was fitting them into a framework of modern astronomy, creating a discovery that was a hybrid of both cultures' worldviews. The lack of independent verification from later researchers strongly suggests that the secret knowledge may have been a product of Grial's unique and perhaps flawed research methodology, rather than an ancient Dogon tradition. The third, and perhaps most telling, flaw in the ancient astronaut theory is the problem of the errors. If the Dogon's knowledge was a perfect, divine revelation from an advanced alien species, one would expect it to be completely accurate. A species capable of interstellar travel would surely have its basic astronomical facts straight. Yet, when we look closely at the full body of Dogon cosmology as reported by Grial, we find that it is a mixture of stunningly correct facts and equally stunning errors. The most significant error is their claim about a third star in the Sirius system, Enigma. As we noted, they describe this star in some detail, even claiming it has a planet orbiting it. However, decades of intense astronomical observation have failed to confirm the existence of a Sirius C. Modern telescopes, including the Hubble Space Telescope, have scrutinized the Sirius system and have found no evidence of a third stellar companion. If the Namo came from this system, it seems like a rather large and important detail for them to get wrong. Furthermore, other aspects of their celestial knowledge are demonstrably incorrect. For example, Grial reported that the Dogon believed their creator god Amma threw the sun and moon into the sky like clay pots. They also believed that the stars were formed from pellets of clay. These are clearly creation myths, not scientific facts. Their knowledge of our own solar system is also inconsistent. While they are credited with knowing about Jupiter's 4 moons and Saturn's rings, some of their other beliefs about the planets are mythological. They also held geocentric beliefs about certain celestial bodies, believing that the Earth was the center of some orbits. This mixture of accurate and inaccurate information is the key. A perfect revelation from an advanced alien race should be flawless. But a human myth, a system of belief that has grown and evolved over time and has recently absorbed some new, exciting facts from an outside culture, would look exactly like this. It would be a messy, beautiful, contradictory blend of ancient symbolism, mythological explanations, and a few startlingly modern scientific facts that have been woven into the older tapestry. The errors are, in a way, more revealing than the successes. They point not to a clean external source of information, but to a messy internal and very human process of cultural creation. The Namo, it seems, were not very good astronomers. Or, more likely, the story of the Namo is not a literal account of an alien visit, but a powerful myth created by the Dogon to explain their place in the universe. A myth that was later updated, with some fascinating new information from the West. So, where does this leave the mystery? The skeptical case is powerful. The theory of cultural contamination via Western visitors in the early 20th century provides a rational terrestrial source for the astronomical knowledge. The lack of independent verification from other anthropologists suggests that Grial's findings may have been unique to his own research, possibly a result of misinterpretation. And the presence of significant errors alongside the correct facts points to a human-made myth rather than a perfect alien revelation. For most scientists and academics, these arguments are conclusive. The Dogon mystery is considered to be debunked, a classic case study in how easily myths about ancient knowledge can be created and perpetuated. And yet, a small, persistent kernel of mystery remains. The contamination theory, while plausible, is not definitively proven. There is no smoking gun, no diary entry from a missionary or explorer from 1910 detailing a conversation with a Dogon elder about Sirius B. It remains a hypothesis, a very strong one, but a hypothesis nonetheless. And the sheer precision of the 50-year orbital period remains deeply troubling. It's one thing to learn that an invisible star exists. It's another to peg its orbit with such accuracy and then base your entire ritual culture around it. Is it really plausible that the Dogon would so completely re-engineer their most ancient and sacred festival based on a casual conversation with a passing stranger? It seems to require a level of cultural upheaval that is hard to imagine. The Dogon Enigma, therefore, has not been completely stripped of its power. While the evidence against the ancient astronaut theory is formidable, the story itself continues to resonate. It speaks to a deep human desire to believe that we are not alone in the universe, and that our own past may be far more magical and mysterious than the history books tell us. It serves as a powerful reminder of the intellectual sophistication of so-called primitive cultures, and whether they got their knowledge from aliens or created it themselves, their ability to construct such a complex and enduring cosmology is a testament to the power of the human imagination. The final truth of the Dogon and Sirius may be lost to the shifting sands of the Sahel and the complexities of cross-cultural communication. But the questions it raises will continue to haunt us, a permanent and fascinating puzzle that sits right on the edge of what we think we know about our world, our history, and our place among the stars. The Dogon mystery remains one of the most compelling ancient astronaut cases ever recorded. The precision of their knowledge about Sirius B is difficult to explain away completely. Whether they are the guardians of a sacred, extraterrestrial truth or the creators of a brilliant myth that absorbed modern ideas, their story challenges our assumptions about the past. It reminds us that there may still be secrets hidden not in space, but in the forgotten knowledge of ancient cultures here on Earth. If the past still whispers to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ancient Relics Keeper, because some mysteries were never meant to be buried.